The Watchtower and Awake publications, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Peace of mind and self-respect.
The Watchtower and Awake are the two main publications produced by Jehovah's Witnesses. With over 100 million copies printed monthly in more than 300 languages, these magazines serve as the primary tools for shaping the beliefs and behaviors of the community. Founded in the late 19th century by Charles Taze Russell, Jehovah's Witnesses reject mainstream Christian doctrines like the Trinity. They prohibit blood transfusions, military service, saluting national flags, and celebrating birthdays or major holidays. The publications promote isolation of members from outside influences by labeling non-official literature as poisonous spiritual food. Members are instructed to trust the Watchtower as the only source of truth, discouraging higher education to prevent doubt or departure from the faith. The organization enforces a strict system of shunning, or social exclusion, against anyone who questions or leaves the group, even including family members. Those who are shunned, called apostates, are not to be spoken to. This practice has caused significant psychological trauma, with some cases leading to suicide. Due to these factors, human rights activists have criticized the Watchtower publications as a roadmap for systematic indoctrination and emotional manipulation. In 2017, Russia officially banned Jehovah's Witnesses, designating it an extremist organization because of concerns about the psychological control exerted through these teachings. Dianetics and advanced Scientology teachings.
Dianetics is today's #1 self-help bestseller.
Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health, published in 1950 by L. Ron Hubbard, is the foundational book of the Church of Scientology. Hubbard, originally a science fiction writer, claimed to have discovered a scientific way to cure psychological trauma by erasing engrams, subconscious memories influencing emotions and physical reactions. The book introduces auditing, a practice where individuals answer questions while holding a device called an e-meter, which supposedly measures mental changes. Dianetics promises mental freedom and spiritual growth. However, former members have reported that the practice leads to intense mental manipulation and strict emotional and financial control. Beyond Dianetics, Scientology's secret operating thetan levels represent higher stages of awareness claimed to bring spiritual perfection. These require significant financial investment to progress. The church aggressively silences critics through lawsuits, surveillance, and harassment tactics, known as fair game. Members are forbidden from reading outside criticism and pressured to sever ties with unsupportive family. Several countries label Scientology as dangerous. Germany denies its religious status, and a French court found it guilty of fraud. Dianetics is more than a book. It acts as a gateway into a belief system widely accused of brainwashing its followers through psychological and social control. The Book of Mormon, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
You may have heard of the Book of Mormon, but you might be surprised what it's actually about.
The Book of Mormon, published in 1830 by Joseph Smith, is the central religious text of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormon Church. Smith claimed to have received divine revelations from an angel named Moroni, and translated ancient writings inscribed on golden plates, using special stones called the Urim and Thummim. The book presents a complex narrative about ancient peoples in the Americas, believed to be descendants of Israelites, including stories of Jesus appearing in the New World. While it appears as a supplementary scripture, the Book of Mormon establishes an exclusive belief system. It claims that all other churches have fallen into apostasy, and only the Mormon Church holds true divine authority. This exclusivity underpins a highly hierarchical and tightly controlled social structure. Early Mormonism demanded strict loyalty to its prophet and doctrines, including the controversial practice of polygamy. Many followers lived in closed communities, often abandoning former lives to join the faith. Members are taught to avoid external literature, dedicate themselves to missionary work, and unquestioningly follow the evolving revelations of church leaders. Although modern Mormonism is less rigid, many former members report ongoing psychological pressure, social surveillance, and family isolation when they leave, making the Book of Mormon not just a sacred text but a powerful source of ideological and identity control within the faith. The 12 Tribes' internal pamphlets and teachings.
There's dozens of free pamphlets inviting customers to learn more and join their organization.
The 12 Tribes is a religious movement that started in the early 1970s in Tennessee, led by Albert Eugene Spriggs. They present themselves as a group seeking to restore the communal lifestyle of early Christians. However, behind this peaceful image, their internal books and pamphlets, which are not available to the public, contain strict and exclusive interpretations of Scripture. These teachings promote a patriarchal social order and reject modern education and government involvement. Members must live together in community, give up all personal property, and cut all ties with outsiders including family. Children are not allowed formal schooling, but are educated within the group under strict controls, including physical punishment to ensure obedience to leaders. The community produces various internal writings with titles like The Three Eternal Destinies of Man and Critical Issues, which claim that only the 12 tribes understand God's true plan. Governments in Germany and Australia have raided their communities amid allegations of child abuse and human rights violations. Former members report severe psychological trauma and strict control over their lives, with critical thinking forbidden. This makes the 12 tribes' internal texts a clear example of religious brainwashing through tightly controlled information and social control. Children of God and the Mo letters
became known as Mo letters. Mo letters, so called because of Berg's nickname, Moses David.
The Children of God, later called the Family International, was a highly controversial religious movement founded by David Berg in the late 1960s. The group combined Christian mysticism with intense interpersonal control. Berg wrote over 3,000 secret letters called the Mo letters, which contained a mix of spiritual teachings, end-time prophecies, and twisted advice on intimate relationships based on Bible verses. These letters introduced practices like flirty fishing, where members used intimacy as a means of recruiting new followers, leading to widespread exploitation and abuse, especially among the youngest members. Followers were trained to obey Berg without question. Families were often separated, with children raised in isolation under severe spiritual indoctrination. Young members were taught to worship both God and Berg as a prophetic figure. Access to mainstream education, books, or alternative opinions was denied. Former members report severe trauma from abuse, physical harm, and the apocalyptic doctrines they were forced to accept from childhood. Though the group has since publicly reformed, the Mo letters remain a clear example of religious brainwashing disguised in religious language. The Final Call and Nation of Islam's ideological texts. The Final Call is the official newspaper of the Nation of Islam, a religious and political organization founded in the United States in the 1930s. Although it claims Islamic roots, the Nation of Islam's teachings sharply diverge from mainstream Islam. Their ideology blends racial theology, conspiracy theories, and black nationalism. Under the leadership of Louis Farrakhan since 1977, the Final Call has become the main channel spreading this ideology. Its content often portrays white people as devils, a view taught by the group's founder, Elijah Muhammad. The newspaper also includes conspiracy theories, Holocaust denial, and anti-Semitic and anti-government views. Farrakhan once referred to Hitler as a very great man, sparking broad condemnation. The paper is sold widely by Nation of Islam members known as the Fruit of Islam on city streets. Followers are encouraged to consume only internal information and show complete loyalty to Farrakhan. Critics argue that the Final Call is more than propaganda. It brainwashes young black Americans through divisive rhetoric, racial supremacy ideas, and leader worship. Former members have reported strict social control, a spiritual caste system, and rejection of outside education that does not align with the group's teachings. This creates a closed environment reinforcing obedience and limiting exposure to alternative viewpoints. Quotations from Chairman Mao, The Little Red Book. The Little Red Book is a collection of quotes from Chairman Mao Zedong that was widely distributed and used during China's Cultural Revolution from 1966 to 1976. Though not a religious text in the traditional sense, it was treated like a holy book by millions of Chinese citizens. Under Mao's leadership, the Communist Party created a powerful cult of personality around him. The book contained Mao's statements on politics, morality, war, and Marxist-Leninist ideology. It became the only book every citizen was required to own, read, and memorize. The Red Guards, militant youth groups, enforced strict loyalty by forcing people to publicly recite passages and practice Mao's teachings. Those who resisted were subject to imprisonment, exile, torture, or even death. The Little Red Book became one of history's largest tools for mass brainwashing, isolating a whole generation from outside views and molding them into complete obedience to state ideology. Mao was portrayed almost as a messiah, with each of his quotes treated as absolute truth, influencing even everyday conversations. Though political, the book created a dogmatic and fanatical mindset whose effects are still felt socially and psychologically in China today. The holy texts of Aum Shinrikyo.
オウム真理教の There were about a dozen people killed and thousands injured.
Shinrikyo, founded in Japan in 1984 by Shoko Asahara, is one of the most extreme examples of a religious group using its texts to brainwash followers with deadly consequences. The group blended elements from Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, and Western occultism into a unique and secretive set of holy writings interpreted solely by Asahara. Asahara declared himself both the Christ of Japan and the Matra Buddha, the final spiritual leader before the end of the world. His texts, including works like The Supreme Truth, portrayed the world as evil and dominated by materialism. They taught that total loyalty to Asahara was the only way to enlightenment. Disturbingly, these writings justified violence, including murder of non-believers, which the cult framed as saving souls from suffering rebirth. This doctrine became the basis for the 1995 Tokyo subway sarin gas attack, which killed 13 people and injured thousands. Inside the cult, members endured harsh rituals, like consuming chemicals, mental isolation, and witnessing violence. Many were well-educated individuals who were gradually indoctrinated through meditation, financial surrender, and finally total submission to Asahara's revelations. These texts and practices didn't just brainwash followers, they erased their individual identity and humanity to serve the absolute power of a dangerous guru. The Slave Bible and contemporary cult manuals.
The so-called Slave Bible, remarkable not for what's in it, but for what's not.
The Slave Bible was a heavily edited version of the Bible used historically to control enslaved people. Large portions of the text that might inspire thoughts of freedom or equality were removed, leaving a version focused solely on obedience and submission. This manipulation of sacred scripture was a powerful tool for mental control and oppression. In modern times, many cults and spiritual groups use internal manuals, secret writings, or unpublished teachings to control their members. Examples include groups like Nexium, The Family, Children of the Promise, and other contemporary spiritual movements. These writings often do not form formal books but serve as detailed guides for indoctrination, mental manipulation, and social control. Similarly, Scientology's advanced operating Thaden levels, which are secret teachings available only after costly initiation, exert psychological influence. Some esoteric and New Age cults also use manuals that act as internal control tools, though these tend to be less formalized than traditional scriptures. Additionally, some Gnostic texts historically were used to separate and control certain religious groups by promoting exclusive knowledge and complex theological distinctions, which limited access and maintained control over followers. The Unification Church's Divine Principle and Indoctrination texts.
These children's books are the work of the Unification Church.
The Unification Church, founded in 1954 by Sun Myung Moon in South Korea, centers its teachings around a book called The Divine Principle. This book lays out the church's beliefs and is the foundation for all teachings and practices within the group. Followers participate in intense seminars and retreats, where they study the divine principle deeply. During these events, communication with outsiders is restricted, and attendees endure long hours of repeated lectures. This process is designed to exhaust participants mentally, making them more open to accepting the church's messages, an example of psychological pressure used to influence thinking. One of the most notable rituals of the Unification Church is mass weddings, where arrangements are made by Moon himself. Often members are paired with partners they have never met or barely know, based on what Moon claims is divine insight. These ceremonies reinforce the idea that individual choice is secondary to the will of the church leadership. The church demands total loyalty, including financial contributions, and the surrender of personal assets to support Moon's mission worldwide. Those who question or leave the church often face emotional and social isolation, including being cut off from family members who remain faithful. Critics describe the Unification Church's control as conditional love. Members are told they will receive spiritual blessings and a place in heaven if they comply fully. Those who dissent risk losing everything. Their families, communities, and personal identities are taken away to maintain control over individuals. Overall, the divine principle functions not just as a religious text, but as a mechanism for indoctrination, limiting critical thinking and enforcing strict obedience to a centralized authority. But how do beliefs about spiritual manipulation and control connect to the supernatural stories found in ancient texts? If you're curious about the real reasons why demons entered a herd of pigs in one of the Bible's most mysterious miracles, you won't want to miss our next video. Click now to discover everything behind this strange event and learn what it reveals about evil, possession, and spiritual influence.